All right, guys, welcome in. It is 1 p.m. here on the East Coast. So we are going to go ahead and get started. We will give a few folks a couple minutes to kind of trickle in. But really excited to be here with you guys. I recognize a lot of names on the registration list. I see some new ones as well. So for those who don't know me, my name's Danny Decker, partner, co-founder here, Spotlight Marketing and Branding. We've got a great team here with you today. I'll let them introduce themselves real quick. Dylan, do you want to go ahead and introduce yourself, and then Jana and Eddie, you can do the same.
Yeah, yeah. Thanks, Danny. I am Dylan Stebbins. I am the director of client services here at Spotlight Branding. So a lot of that is just is working directly with the people that we get from webinars like this, and just making sure that their services are up to par and kind of hitting above standard.
Love it.
Good. Well, hello there. I'm Jana Overcash. I am our senior marketing strategist, and I'm excited to also see some of the names. I recognize some as well. So, if anything from this sparks an interest and you want to talk further, myself and Eddie are probably two of the people that you will most likely connect with. So, if you're looking to learn more or getting more resources or talk about our services, that's who you'll get to talk to, for better or worse.
And my name is Eddie DiZallo with the unpronounceable last name. I do a very similar job as Jana. So anytime you have marketing questions, we learn about you. We spend a lot of time learning about your firm and where you're at, and we start recommending where we could go next and try to take your firm to the next level. That's our goal.
Cool. Thanks, guys. And for those of you in the room, if you don't mind, let's drop in the chat. I always like to get a sense of kind of who's in the room. What type of well, let's start here. Where are you located? And what type of law do you practice? We'll make sure the chat is working. So go ahead and please do introduce yourselves. We're coming to you from Charlotte, North Carolina, and Brett, St. Louis, business law, estate planning, fantastic. Let's hear from a few others here, guys. Oh, there we go. And also, by the way, we're gonna do a lot of sort of interactive chat here. So you probably see on the chat window, you have the option of sending your message to everyone or just to the hosts and panelists. Um, I would go ahead and just choose everybody, unless there's a specific reason you want the information just to come to us. But otherwise, most of the room won't get to see your comment. So great, we got a good spread here. New York, Virginia, Florida, Raleigh, North Carolina, South Florida. Wouldn't mind being there right now. Love it. Cool, guys. All right, we are here to talk about how law firms can get leads and clients from ChatGPT. As you probably know, or as you've maybe heard, or maybe some of you have experienced, ChatGPT is exploding as a marketing channel for law firms, not just a way to create content, not just as like an operational efficiencies thing, but actually a marketing channel. You can get clients from ChatGPT. We are seeing this happen. So today, here's what we're going to talk about. One, we're going to kind of talk about big picture. What is the ChatGPT opportunity? Why this is a great time to be thinking about this. Many people are right now kind of planning marketing for 2026. We're helping our clients plan their marketing for 2026. And ChatGPT and AI search in general is going to be a big piece of that. Two, we're going to get real specific, show you some examples, kind of how this all works, how potential clients are actually using ChatGPT right now, today, to find a lawyer. Those of you in the room with us, are you guys seeing clients from ChatGPT? Are you drop a comment and just let us know, are you getting phone calls, leads, clients from ChatGPT? Always curious. Um, we are, Eddie is exactly right. We actually have gotten a couple of clients who found us through ChatGPT. That was actually the thing that opened my eyes to, wow, this thing is becoming a marketing channel. Very early this year, we started getting, inquiries from people that found us through ChatGPT. Caroline, a couple so far. Very cool. Next piece is we're gonna get real specific, right? And try to show you how to answer this question, right? How ChatGPT is making their recommendations, how they're answering questions. This is the $1 million question. Okay. Several people have asked, what is different about GEO, okay, which stands for generative engine optimization. Some people are calling this AEO, AI engine optimization. But basically, how is optimizing for ChatGPT and Gemini and Perplexity and Grok, how is that different than traditional SEO? The truth is there's overlap, but there are some key differences, and we're going to explain that. And as always, we like to end with sort of some real practical steps you can take to make this happen for yourself. So we're going to start here. I genuinely believe that this is the biggest development in digital marketing probably since the invention of social media. I know that maybe sounds like hyperbole, but I just firmly believe, and the data is there, consumer behavior is shifting incredibly fast on this. ChatGPT as a specific platform is over 2 billion inquiries every single day. It took them a little over 2 years to get there. It took Google 10 years to get there. And Google is the model of a fast growth company. Okay. ChatGPT is growing incredibly quickly. We are seeing conservative, that at least 10% of traditional search traffic is shifting to ChatGPT and other AI platforms. The reality is consumers today are asking ChatGPT for recommendations, whether that is, for the best restaurant in town or the best law firm in town or the best yo-yo to get their kid for Christmas. And I think, at least a few of you have mentioned that you are seeing measurable effects from ChatGPT. We see it in the data all the time. We have access to, we manage websites for, well over 100 law firms across the country. We see it in the data. This is happening. This is real. So before we kind of jump into, what to do about it, Dylan, I'll pass it over to you for a second. Anything to add here just in terms of context?
Yeah, no, I just kind of want to echo what you were talking about of we've had people ask us flat out, like, are people doing this? Like, are other lawyers thinking about this, doing this? I know, Robert, you mentioned getting clients from ChatGPT isn't something that you've even had on your mind. But we have had clients that we've signed that are currently paying us, that are currently getting marketing from us, who came to us for this. They said, this is a thing. I'm seeing it in my market. My competitors are getting clients from ChatGPT. I need to do the same thing. I can't fall behind. So if you're wondering, are other people in my industry, are my peers doing this? The answer is yes, they are doing it. We are working with them. We are seeing them work with other people. So it's definitely something that there has been a shift, that it's not a guess anymore. Like, we are seeing it, and we are part of kind of that change, and it
And
is
I just
definitely
saw a
there.
conversation the other day from a client of ours that had just gotten their first client that they were aware of through
Yep.
ChatGPT. This stuff is happening, and 2026 is absolutely going to be a year of massive AI
Yeah.
search growth.
Yep. You mentioned the traffic, like the way traffic is shifting, the way a lot of people don't go to Google anymore. There was a period at the beginning of this where we all wondered, could you just ignore this and be fine? The answer is probably still yes. Like, sure, there's people that have never even thought about this that are going to be fine, but that traffic is shifting, and there's a chance it's going to shift so much that eventually you won't be fine if you're not thinking about this.
I think that's a good point, Dylan, and I'll put this out here before we dive into the specifics here. We're not telling you that Google is dead, right? There are some marketing agencies that are maybe hyping this up a little bit too much, right? Google's not dead. Google is still probably the single biggest source of, non-referral leads for law firms, right? But 10% is a big number, and it's only going to grow. So, yes, I don't want you to stop doing everything else that you're doing. If you're advertising on Google and it's working, I don't want you to stop doing that, but be aware that this shift is happening fast. So let's get specific. All right. There's two main ways that a potential client is going to use ChatGPT in relation to law. Okay. And the first is the less exciting of the two, is asking a legal question. And yes, I realize this font is a little bit small. I wanted to give you guys the full context, so I will read to you everything that is important. Right. So here is an example of a very typical use case. So the user asks, how do I get started with an estate plan in North Carolina? ChatGPT does a nice job of giving like a nicely formatted answer, right? Number one, take stock of your assets and goals. Two, understand the key documents. Three, probate and taxes, right? Nicely formatted, informational answer. We'll talk a little bit about how they formulate this information. But this is kind of use case number one. Now, I will point out at the bottom, right? Where ChatGPT asks what you want to do next. It basically says, if you want, I can also give you a list of reputable estate planning attorneys or firms in North Carolina, right? And so, there's obviously a subset of people who are going to say yes, and then they're going to get a list of law firms. Obviously, you being one of them is the goal here, okay? Nonetheless, that's a little less exciting because it's not direct. All right. The more direct use case is asking for a recommendation. So we've got some examples here. Okay. And we are doing this for some of our clients. And so, yes, we're going to showcase some of the results that we're seeing. So here is the user question. I own a business in Sacramento and I need help with estate planning. Can you recommend an estate planning law firm in Sacramento? We get our answer, right? ChatGPT says, perfect, you're a business owner in Sacramento, and lists some answers, right? Our client, Law Office of Tyler Q. Dahl, is the first response. And I want you to recognize, especially for those of you who have not really seen how this works before, there's a lot more information here than the typical Google response where it's just some blue links and maybe a phone number, right? It gives Tyler's website. It talks about his focus, which is estate planning, business succession, tax strategy, asset protection. But then it goes further and it actually kind of pitches him, right? It says why it's a fit. Tyler specializes in helping business owners create integrated estate and business plans. His firm is known for organized process, modern technology, and a deep understanding of how your company, family, and estate intersect. And then it gives his address. Okay, and in this case, it gave five answers. And then I do want you to note down at the bottom, it kind of gives a summary, right? And it says, if you're looking for personalized business savvy planning, Tyler Q. Dahl would be my top recommendation, especially if you prefer a firm that's entrepreneur focused and proactive rather than large and corporate. Big deal, right? I hope you guys can see why this is a really big deal. This will there's a hyperlink to Tyler's website. Like this is directly driving traffic to Tyler's website. And I also want you to recognize that this was a very specific recommendation, right? This was estate planning, but it was specifically for business owners, which is his target client. Okay. Now I want
Yeah.
to
Danny,
this
do you
is
mind if I just mention real quick?
please jump in.
I wanted, can you bring up that last slide just showing? So what I want to point out, Danny's going to get into, and we'll get into kind of how and all that, how we're executing this. But every single word that is mentioned in Tyler's, in that why it's a fit, that is all very intentional. I wrote almost all of Tyler's content to this point in his time with us, and he to clarify, like he is very big on business owners and marrying their business lives and their personal lives. So that's the whole goal here. And some of you that work in that the industry understand he wants to marry the estate plan and the business plan because he wants to handle the whole experience of these wealthy business owners. And all of that is present in each piece of content we produce for him, which is how we get to this. So this is all very, very intentional in the way we've messaged with Tyler.
Love it. Guys, give us a thumbs up or something. Does this make sense? Are you guys tracking with me? If you've got questions, feel free to drop in the chat. And that's a great point, Dylan. Thanks for sharing. So, okay. So here is one of the really interesting sort of distinctions and things that ChatGPT can do for you. Because the first question that I shared with you was asking for an estate planning firm in Sacramento that specializes in working with business owners. Okay, now we went and asked, I need a low cost estate planning firm in Sacramento. Who would you recommend? Okay, there are plenty of law firms that are going after the more low cost market. That's not Tyler Dahl. Those are not the clients he wants to work with. Guess what? ChatGPT gives a completely different set of recommendations. Okay. It's three law firms, and then it's LegalZoom, and then it's the lawyer referral service through the Sacramento County Bar. Okay. So what just happened here is this particular client who was not a good fit for Tyler did not get sent to Tyler, right? Versus the first example is exactly the type of client he wants to attract. This is one of the reasons why I'm really, really excited about ChatGPT and AI search as compared to Google, because you are able to dial in the exact types of clients you want to serve and have ChatGPT recommend those people to reach out to you and not the others. And we always say marketing has two jobs. One, everybody knows about, right? One is to attract the right clients, but two is to keep everybody else away. It's hard to do that through Google. It's a lot easier to do that through ChatGPT. So this is really powerful. One more example here. This is a client of ours in Oakville, Canada. And the question is, I'm in Oakville, Canada. I'm thinking about getting divorced. I own a business. I have pretty high net worth. I'd like to work with an attorney who specializes in high net worth divorce. It recommends one of our clients. Okay. That's what she does. That's who she specializes in. To Dylan's point, we've created content that makes this very clear. Then we ask the same question. I'm in Oakville, Canada, but I need a cheap divorce attorney. Can you recommend some options? We get different options, right? Starting with Legal Aid Ontario. Once again, the point here is if somebody just goes to Google and searches for divorce attorney Oakville, Canada, we're going to get a list, right? But what we're able to now do is by creating content that makes it clear who the right types of clients are for these firms, we can control who gets recommended and who doesn't. Super powerful. First big takeaway. Make sure your website content identifies and speaks to your ideal client. This is really important today in a way that it wasn't necessarily 2 or 3 years ago, because as we just showed, AI search platforms will match the types of clients you are seeking with the recommendations that they make. All right. That's kind of how it works from a use case. Okay. Now we want to step behind the curtain a little bit and let's talk about how ChatGPT and the other LLMs, which stand for learning language model, actually work. Okay. At the core, they are really nothing more than next word predictors. I'm going to show you guys how this works. Please fill in the blank in the chat. The dog runs quickly, fast. Need a few more answers. Away.
Gotta go get your dog, Mike.
Erratically. I like it. Okay. The dog runs blank. Now let's do it again. The soup is cold, hot, hot, hot. Just right. Cold. All right. Not for Eddie. Very cool. Okay. This is, at the end of the day, like, again, simplistic, but this is how it works. ChatGPT is simply predicting the next word when it answers a question. For example, you don't need to type in your answer here, right? But if somebody goes to ChatGPT and asks for the best family law firm in Miami, it's going to respond, the best family law firm in Miami is blank, and it's going to fill in a response. And so how you get your law firm to be recommended is what really matters. And so how does this all happen? Okay, ChatGPT uses really two basic sources. And when I say ChatGPT, by the way, we're Gemini, Grok, Perplexity, they work the same way. One is there's a training data set. Okay, that is a bunch of data that is loaded into ChatGPT every couple of months. It includes digital websites and content, but it also includes books. It can include movies, right? It is a massive amount of knowledge that is loaded into ChatGPT, and ChatGPT uses that information to answer questions. And then part two is depending on what question is asked, right? ChatGPT will also sometimes crawl the live internet, right? Because it doesn't necessarily, the data set is refreshed every few months. But if you're asking a more current event oriented question, it's typically going to crawl the live internet. That is something that it didn't used to do, but now it does. Okay. So you're loading this information and ChatGPT is using that information to answer questions. One more for you guys. One fish, two fish, red fish. All right. I was expecting everybody to say bluefish. Okay. And here's why this one's a little different, right? Good job, except for our team that didn't answer correctly, but everybody else did great. Here's the thing. One fish, two fish, red fish, bluefish, right, is a book that has been burned into all of our brains when we were kids because Dr. Seuss is amazing at what he does, right? So that is an example of he influenced the way our minds think about language such that most people are going to fill in that sentence: one fish, two fish, red fish, blue fish, right? That is an example of we all just in our minds just functioned as next word predictors. And what Dr. Seuss did with that book is an example of how we all want to influence ChatGPT to get our businesses recommended. Okay? Make sense? Everybody with me? Give me a thumbs up, or let me know if you have questions. Dylan, anything to add here?
Yeah, I was just gonna like the way this all works. Like, obviously, as we talk about this, when we think about the answer to the dog runs blank, we are pulling that from somewhere. We're pulling that from our experience. ChatGPT is doing the same thing. We're talking a lot about how new all of this is, but ultimately, it comes down to you want to flood the market with accurate, authoritative information because you want the next time that ChatGPT is predicting the next word to be a word that favors your firm, your business. So when it says the best law firm in Miami is, you want to have already flooded the market to the point where the next word it says is your firm. Obviously, if you're in Miami, if you're in Albuquerque, that's not going to help you. But if you're in Miami and you flooded that market, that is an old marketing tradition that just applies in a new way now.
Perfect. All right. So, one more thing to understand about all of this, right? And this is one of the things that makes ChatGPT interesting, is that there is an element of randomness built in. In other words, it is specifically programmed not actually to give the exact same answer every time. And the percentage of randomness that computer scientists say goes into this is about 80%. Right. So, in our example, one fish, two fish, red fish, blue fish, ChatGPT probably would have spit out blue fish 80% of the time, but the other 20% of the time looked for a different answer. And this is really important. And we'll talk about why, but just understand this is why you get different answers when you ask ChatGPT the same question today and then ask the same question tomorrow. You're going to get different answers, and it is by design. And it is because there is randomness built into their algorithm. All right. So listen, there's a ton of complexity that goes into this. But at the end of the day, this is basically how these models work. They predict the next word. Okay. So our job, as Dylan said, is to influence it so that it answers questions the way that we want it to answer questions. All right. Quick announcement. We are running next year, starting in January, a mastermind program specifically for small law firm owners. I'm going to tell you about it real quick. If anybody is interested, we would love to have you join us. Couple of focuses. Probably number one is going really deep into this subject material that we're talking about today, which is how to position your firm on platforms like ChatGPT. But we're also going to talk about some really important general marketing topics like how to implement good, effective KPIs, how to improve your automations, ultimately how to align sales and intake with your marketing so that all this marketing activity ultimately turns into revenue and growth for your law firm. The way this is going to work, we're going to do 3 in-person days here in Charlotte. You'll get to meet our team. You can have a tour of the office. We're actually going to probably create some content for you in the office, but we're going to do that in January, and then in May, and then in September. Then in the in-between months, we will do monthly virtual mastermind sessions, right? So these will be, hot seat style. I know maybe some of you have been in mastermind groups and some of you haven't. Basically, the idea is you're learning not just from us, right, as marketing experts, but really, probably more importantly, learning from other law firm owners in small law firms across the country in terms of what is actually working for them in real time. Super valuable. We'll have a Facebook implementation group or maybe a Slack channel or maybe both, right, where people can sort of stay in touch in real time as we're working to implement this stuff. We are limiting this to, we're not going to do it if we don't get at least 8 people, and we're capping it at 12. And the idea is we want no direct competitors in the room, so we're limiting it to 1 firm per practice area per city. We are closing applications on Friday. So if this is something you're interested in participating in, get your application in right now. Mike, if you don't mind dropping the link in the chat, or if anybody wants to do this on their phone now or later, feel free to scan the QR code. Again, the basic idea here is we're getting together a group of law firm owners in diverse practice areas from across the country. We're going to spend focused time together, both teaching marketing best practices, right? That we've learned through our time, running this agency, but also learning from other law firm owners across the country. Super valuable. So if anybody's interested, right? If you enjoy these webinars, if this has been helpful, like you can get a lot more of this next year. So apply if you're interested. All right. We just talked about how people use ChatGPT to find a lawyer. I gave you kind of the basic understanding of how ChatGPT works as a next word predictor. Now let's talk about how it actually decides to answer questions, right? So as we talked about, ChatGPT is trained from a handful of different sources, right? Big websites like government sites, media websites, Wikipedia, but also smaller websites, right? Private websites, websites run by my agency, websites run by your law firms, right? Individual businesses, organizations, those are absolutely crawled and included in ChatGPT data. Also, a lot of people are surprised to learn that ChatGPT is not limited just to digital content. In fact, the training data sets have a lot of non-digital content, books, textbooks, academic papers, magazines, pretty much any reputable source of information. OpenAI has looked to load that into training data. So it's not limited just to information found on the internet. Okay. Forums are a big one. Reddit, Quora, others. Okay. Question and answer type forums are very important in ChatGPT. But then also do understand that even like blog content, articles, video content, ChatGPT can understand and include video content, right? It basically will transcribe it and then potentially include it in the answers to your questions. Okay. Then, as we mentioned earlier, sometimes it will also crawl the live internet. Other times it relies only on the trained data set. Basically, you give it all this information, and then ChatGPT uses what they call trust signals to determine how reliable each source is. Before I dive further into that, Dylan, any context you want to add to this?
People always wonder like, how do I know like what's worth the effort and what's not? Some of that is still being answered. This is evolving. There were times where certain pieces that we'll talk about had more value than others, and then that's kind of shifted over time. Because again, this is all pretty new. I mean, it's been out for a couple years now, but it's going to evolve as it learns, and it's going to eventually learn like where the value truly is. So that's why it's important to be consistent across several different platforms, several different channels. That way, that consistency, wherever the trust signals end up lying for ChatGPT, you will be there and ready to catch that attention.
Perfect. All right. So, got all this information. How does it weight that information and decide what is the right answer? Um, the short version is there are trust signals that ChatGPT looks for to determine which information is most important, right? Again, the idea that in all of our brains, we had all heard one fish, two fish, red fish, blue fish so many times, right? That's just the obvious right answer. ChatGPT has its internal process to figure out what is the right answer. And here's where we're going to get real specific. There's some action steps here for you guys. All right. The first is you want to make sure that your contact information is accurate and consistent everywhere it is listed on the internet. We call it the NAP. Your name, your address, your phone number needs to be the same. Okay. Your company name needs to be presented in the same way on Google, on Facebook, on Instagram, right? So if you're using your full legal name on Google, you need to use your full legal name on social media. You need to use the same address. You should use the same phone number. We always get the question, well, what about like tracking software like CallRail that uses, a dedicated phone number? CallRail is fine because it does what's called dynamic replacement. So on your actual website, the code that ChatGPT is going to interpret is whatever your main number is, not the dynamically replaced tracking phone number. So don't worry if you use something like CallRail. As long as it does dynamic text replacement, you're fine. But listen, this is really simple. I understand this doesn't sound revolutionary, but it's really important that you make sure all of your contact information is consistent everywhere it is listed on the internet. Okay, ChatGPT looks for original on-site content. In other words, content that is published on your blog, on your website. We recommend, and we'll get into the formatting of this, but FAQ style content wherever possible, where you create, let's call it a blog entry that is responding to a specific question. For example, how do I get started with an estate plan in North Carolina? Question would be a great topic, right? Your blog then answers that question. A few things to keep in mind as you're doing this. And Dylan, I know this is your wheelhouse, so feel free to kind of jump in wherever you want. But a few best practices here. One is you want to write authoritatively. Okay, you want to write authoritatively. You don't want to say a lot of, it depends, or we can't really tell. You want to come in with a strong opinion. Obviously, you want to be factually correct, but
Yeah.
write authoritatively.
Yeah, and I understand that, especially in the legal space, that can be scary sometimes. It can be kind of confusing because you're like, oh, well, technically is so much gray area in the law, or there's gray area in this specific scenario. That is okay. You don't have to like risk that with this, but you should still try to be confident, be authoritative, make confident statements that actually answer the question, as Danny mentioned, FAQ style stuff. Because at the end of the day, ChatGPT it's trying to be human. It is doing its best to be human based on the information it's been given. And the human experience is I ask you a question, here is an answer. So structuring your content like that allows ChatGPT to essentially, they're going to trust you. They're like, hey, this person's human. This person's doing the thing I want to do. So I'm going to kind of bring attention to them. But yeah, being confident and authoritative can be challenging in the legal space because of the gray areas. But it's still important to try to make confident statements.
Next piece is clear and concise, right? This is different than the way SEO used to operate. Okay. The goal with SEO was often, hey, we need 3,000 words of content. Honestly, it can be kind of rambly. Not the case. Okay. ChatGPT is looking for clear, concise content. As Dylan said, answered the way a human would answer the question. Okay. So you don't need to write 3,000 words when 300 words will do. Answer the questions clearly, concisely. There's a little acronym BLUF, right? Bottom line up front. Again, we'll show you guys some examples of what this looks like, but basically what it means is you want to answer the question up front with a little executive summary, and then you can continue with the blog entry, right? So give the TLDR, right? The too long didn't read, the 1 or 2 sentence summary of whatever the answer to the question is, and then you can write your full article. Another interesting point here is that ChatGPT is actually going to reward unique points of view. It's not looking like if your content says exactly the same thing as everybody else, you've got less of a chance to be cited, because remember, ChatGPT is intentionally looking for some randomness, right? So if you write the book, One Fish, Two Fish, Red Fish, you fish, or whatever Eddie threw out there, you actually might have a chance of getting cited because ChatGPT is deliberately looking for some level of dissension. Now, obviously, you still need to be correct, right? And do also understand, and I wish I could be a little more like precise about how this works, but I don't know what the formula is. But ChatGPT is looking for a certain level of consensus, right? So if you are out there just saying things on your website that are just obviously not true and are just completely out of consensus, you're probably not going to be, trusted at all. Okay. So look for opportunities to be unique and maybe say things that your competitors wouldn't in ways that they wouldn't. But like, don't go crazy with it. Here's a big one, and this is controversial every time we bring it up. One of the number one questions that people go to ChatGPT for is how much is this going to cost? So you should have information on your website explaining how much it's going to cost to work with your law firm. Now, I get it. You can't always commit to a flat fee. That's totally fine. Just explain the range, right? Maybe a divorce in North Carolina can range from $4,000 for an incredibly simple, amicable, no kids, no assets, right? Divorce, all the way to $30,000 if it's contested and there's kids and you own a house, right? So just explain that. Explain the range, explain sort of what factors are going to determine where somebody lands in that range, and put that information on your website. This is something I have not yet seen for legal. This is something, Dylan, I don't even know if you've seen this slide, because this is something I just saw for the first time a couple days ago. This is Gemini's response. when somebody searches HVAC repair Seattle. But here's what's important. They've now got this button that says have AI get prices. You click on that. AI is then, in this case, Gemini, but ChatGPT does the same thing, is going to pull pricing information from these businesses. If you don't have your pricing information listed on your website, you're not that information is not available, right? And so you're probably your listing is going to be penalized. Certainly you're not going to be able to be one of the options that is recommended. Okay, so this is a big deal, and I really expect that this is going to be a bigger deal next year. So I encourage you, get ahead of the curve, talk about costs and pricing on your website. It's a great topic to write a blog about. It's great static content on your website. Really big deal. Um, You want to use your website content to speak directly to your ideal clients. We already shared some examples of this with Tyler Dahl and Anna Marie Musson. When you create content that is for a very specific type of clientele, ChatGPT and Gemini and Grok are going to recommend those types of people reach out to you. Okay. Fresh content is valued. All things being equal, ChatGPT is giving preference to content that was published this week as opposed to 6 months ago, as opposed to 2 years ago. Okay, so that's kind of one really big bucket is on-site content. Okay, and again, we'll show some examples in a minute, right? But then the second bucket here is reviews, right? What are people saying about you across the internet? You want to have clients leave reviews on Google, leave reviews on Facebook, whatever review platforms you're using. It's a really big deal that clients are leaving reviews whenever possible. Okay. Third party links are really important. If you can get featured in a local newspaper, if you're on a podcast, millions of ways to make this happen, right? But just understand that links back to your website are valuable, kind of like they are from an SEO perspective. If you've won industry awards, Law Firm 500, Super Lawyer, any of these types of awards, put it on your website. It adds to your credibility. It makes you more trustworthy. And then there are a few technical things. Things like your site needs to have an SSL certificate, right? This is just a security mechanism. It's a best practice. Any website we create certainly has that. Most websites these days have that, but you need to have an SSL certificate. You need your data structured in a way, and Dylan, I don't know if it's necessarily worth going any deeper into this, but basically your data needs to be structured in a way that ChatGPT can make sense of it.
Yeah, it is. It can get super technical, and one of the other things you'll mention, it can get very technical, but it is pretty much that basic. When it's essentially, it has to review a billion web pages in seconds to make these responses. So the easier you make that process for it, the more likely you are for it to come up. Because if it can't make sense of what it's seeing on the page when it's doing that search, it's going to move on as fast as possible. Within a millisecond, it will have moved on to a dozen other websites. So you want to make sure you can get it to slow down and understand what the data on your website is saying.
And we use, I believe it's a plugin called Schema, which I think is one of the sort of best practices that just makes it easy for ChatGPT to understand what your website is saying, to Dylan's point. And then the last piece is website load time. Sort of a best practice is you want your site to be able to load fully in under 2 seconds. That's important for ChatGPT as well. All right. If you got questions, feel free to drop them, right? But we're gonna keep rolling. This right here, if you want to take a screenshot, or also I believe we are gonna send a recording of this out, but you could use this as an action plan, right? If you want to get recommended by ChatGPT, what we've got right here is probably 90% of it. All right. So let's share some examples. All right. So coming back to the Tyler Dahl conversation, you'll notice, and again, I realize this font is somewhat small, but the first thing I want you to recognize is that kind of all over his homepage, we talk about sort of the marriage, as Dylan put it, between family and business, and he approaches law. Those are his ideal clients. Dylan, do you want to speak any more about sort of the intentionality that goes into that and sort of that language that you crafted?
Yeah, honestly, it was something that happened over time with Tyler. He had always said like business owners are my goal, and then wrapped that into saying, but it's not just, I don't just want to work with a business owner because they're a business owner. I want to work with them because they are people that have families, which is obviously, as you see, that is Tyler and his family on the cover. That the images are even an intentional part of that messaging. And it was just something where Tyler said, yeah, sure, I can pick up the phone every single time someone calls and take on clients that are going to pay my bills, but they're not the people I want to be working with. And so that's why we worked so hard on this messaging. So that's why it's important to think about that yourself too. Obviously, ideal client can mean something different for different people. For some people, it is just whoever pays the bills, whoever is willing to pay your retainer or pay whatever, contingency fees in their case. Those can be that. There's nothing wrong with that. But for some other people, it's my ideal client is a very specific case type, and it might not even be the case type that makes me the most money. It's just the case type that I want to focus on. And so we have those conversations with all our clients. And whether or not you work with us, I implore you to think about that. Sit down and think what your ideal client actually is, and then look at all your marketing and see if that messaging is present in it.
Love it. So then it kind of an example on the right of a blog article, right? And this is where the tips I gave just a moment ago, right? The first thing you'll notice is that the headline is formatted as a question. Okay, that's a best practice for AI search visibility. The question here is when should you name, or sorry, when you should name a trust as an IRA or 401k beneficiary, right? And so phrased as a question, not as a statement. It's kind of easy to understand why, right? Because that is typically how somebody is going to bring that question to ChatGPT. Okay, so one is phrase the headline as a question. Two, you're going to see the article summary, right? This is the BLUF, bottom line up front. We've got 4 bullet points that kind of answer the question, and then we go into the full, nicely formatted blog entry. Okay, do this over and over and over again. This is how you seed your content with ChatGPT so that you influence the answers. Perfect. All right. One of the questions we get a lot is how is GEO or ChatGPT optimization different than traditional SEO? All right. The first thing to understand is that there is actually a lot of overlap. All right. Here's an example. We have a client, a personal injury law firm in Boulder, Colorado. So this is a Google search result, right? Personal injury law firm, Boulder, Colorado. We do SEO for this client, Debbie Tossig Law. They show up on the first page in the map pack. They show up, their listing shows up, right? It has worked very well for them, traditional SEO. Now, and I pulled this example before we got into any sort of AI specific optimization, went to AI, ChatGPT, and asked the question, can you recommend a good personal injury law firm in Boulder, Colorado? She's the first one that pops up. Okay. That happened purely because the work we did on the SEO side carried over to ChatGPT. But I do also just want you to notice I would just say, more appealing content that ChatGPT answers with, right? It includes 3 bullets about her. She's a former insurance defense attorney now representing injured clients, known for personalized attention, focus on car accidents, et cetera, et cetera. And then it closes with this recommendation. If you're looking for a smaller firm with personal attention, Debbie Tossig could be a fit. And it mentions another firm too. But bottom line, because we have created content that teaches ChatGPT what makes her a good fit, it then spits that information out when somebody asks. But point here is there's a lot of carryover, right? Traditional SEO work does carry over for GEO. Some of the key similarities, we'll start there. Positive reviews are maybe the most important factor. Certainly when it comes to off-site content, positive reviews are super important for GEO and SEO. We've been telling you for years, you want to be asking clients for reviews. That still matters a lot for AI optimization. Backlinks from reputable websites still matters a lot. Fresh content, still very important. Some of the technical optimization stuff that we shared, very important, okay? But there are some really, really important differences. And if you really want to position your firm to do well on ChatGPT and Grok and Perplexity and Gemini, you want to be thinking about this stuff. Number one is the different content formatting and style. We already kind of went through an example. Dylan has spoken about this a couple of times, but these best practices that we've shared, title is a question, um, executive summary, format it in a human friendly manner. Don't take 3,000 words to answer a question if 300 will do, right? These are all big differences, right? Google doesn't care about that stuff. AI search platforms do. Okay. The second and also just huge, and we've tried to make this example multiple times through this presentation, is you really have the opportunity to be clear on exactly the ideal types of clients you want to work with. This is an amazing way to improve the quality of the leads and potential clients that reach out to your law firm. Google does not have the ability to filter people nearly as well as AI search platforms can. So you really want to take advantage and make sure that your website content speaks directly to your ideal clients and makes it clear what your ideal client persona actually is. Okay. Dylan, anything you want to add here?
I mean, as you mentioned, this is something that I have spent a lot of time talking about just today. But when we're talking about this, we're not necessarily saying the SEO stuff is bad or it's going to like crush you if you've been doing SEO for a long time. You can do both. We work with clients who are doing both. Because there, again, there is a lot of that crossover where you're going to get value both ways. And then sometimes it's just a matter of producing some content that is focused on SEO and then some content that is focused on the more organic style that GEO prefers, just so you're not missing out on either avenue in your marketing.
And I'll point out as well, you have the opportunity with GEO to really differentiate yourself further. So if you think back to that example of with Debbie Tossig, for example, where it explained that she was a former insurance defense attorney, now she represents injured people. Okay. Google just doesn't really push that type of information. You're just sort of seeing like blue links, right? ChatGPT loves that type of information. So you should really load your website with kind of whatever unique selling points your law firm has, your personal background, your unique processes, kind of whatever it is that makes you unique. Get that information thoroughly embedded into your website content because ChatGPT will pull it up, right? And then again, we made the point about cost and pricing. I really think every law firm needs to have content on their website answering basic cost and pricing questions. And I really do predict that's going to be a huge deal over the next 6 months because I think that is something that Gemini, um, which is Google's AI platform, as well as ChatGPT, are all going to really start highlighting. Okay. So if you only have one takeaway from this, after we're done here, write a blog or create a page on your website where you answer the question, how much does it cost to get divorced in North Carolina or to create your estate plan in California? Or, how much does it cost to hire a personal injury attorney in Las Vegas? And of course, you then explain, in the PI case, well, it's contingency, right? So the point is, you answer the question, you give a range, you explain. Listen, on the low end of the spectrum, it might cost $4,000 to get divorced. On the high end of the spectrum, it might cost $30,000 if you have a lot of property and it's a contested divorce, right? If you have one single takeaway from this webinar, that's what I would encourage you to go do. All right. We have created a product that can help get a lot of this done for you. I recognize that sitting down and creating content maybe isn't your favorite thing to do. We call it the AI Starter Bundle. It looks like this: 5 blog entries. 4 of them are structured as FAQ responses to hotly asked questions based on your practice area. For example, the Tyler Dahl example, right? And we're going to structure one as the how much does this cost answer. Okay. We're actually going to send a videographer to your office and produce 8 FAQ videos. Here's an example of what that looks like, but they're basically not scripted, just kind of your off the cuff response to 8 questions that your potential clients are probably asking. We'll come up with that list of questions collaboratively with you. We also, just kind of based on our experience as well as some of the research we're able to do on ChatGPT and other platforms, have a really good idea of what types of topics you should be responding to. A third piece of this is an actual audit of your social and your Google My Business listing. We talked about how important it is that you have NAP alignment, name, address, phone number alignment. That's part of this process. We will create a social media push and an email marketing push to help you get more reviews. As we've talked about, reviews are a really important piece of the puzzle. And if well, regardless of whether we're building your website or not, we are able to do a website audit and kind of point out to you if there are technical deficiencies that may be holding you back in terms of your AI visibility. This is something we're offering flat fee of $32.50. Or if you are interested in signing up with one of our ongoing marketing programs, which include a lot of AI optimization, but also referral marketing, social media marketing, and some other things as well, we offer some discounts around that. So if you are interested in this product or learning more about our services in general, Mike, if you don't mind dropping the link in chat. But we'd be happy to have a conversation with you. This is where you'll get to meet with Jana and Eddie. We'll get to know your firm and just talk about what marketing could look like for you over the next 12 months. So with that, before we turn it over to any questions, Dylan, any final thoughts kind of on your end, just around the importance of this as we move into 2026?
Yeah, no, I mean, I think we've probably made it pretty clear. Like there is just a wide range of ways you can influence this, and you're not going to go wrong doing any of those things. The more you can do, the better. Obviously, we get it. You're lawyers, you own law firms, you are marketing for your law firm, so you can't always, do it all yourself, which is kind of what we're here for as well.
Yeah, love it. Um, Adam asked a great question. If we are not looking for bargain shoppers and generally are looking for high assets in our divorce cases, is it still important to spell out pricing in our website? Adam, I would suggest yes. Um, just because if you don't, ChatGPT is just not going to consider citing your is just not going to consider citing your site when these types of questions come up. I get that,
Yeah.
like, hey, you are not going to come off as the cheapest, which by the way I think is great, and I hope you see sort of the application from some of these other examples. Um, like Mussin Law, who has a very similar avatar, just kind of how important all this stuff is. But yes, I still would explain the price range. Even folks with a very high net worth are still, still interested in this information, are still asking this question. So, like, yes, I would say this is blanket advice, kind of across the spectrum. Um,
Yeah,
anything to add to
and
that,
I
Dylan?
think like obviously when we think about different kind of target markets and stuff like that, there are going to be different ways to approach it. Like as Danny said, like yes, I think there's value in that. Um, I think people with high net worth and that are dealing with a lot of assets might be a little less like picky when they're looking for the price. So you could probably get away with being like instead of giving a range saying 15 grand and up. I'm just making up a number. I have no idea what you're looking for, but like, oh, our package, our divorce package is $15,000 and up. That'll get the message across that they need. Again, I'm just making up that number. It could be whatever you feel it is. But they'll understand when you set that floor.
Love it. A couple questions came in through the Q&A portal. One, if we build your website, who owns the content? Where is it hosted? You own the content. We host it through a really secure platform. But if we end up for whatever reason not continuing to work together, we transfer that to you. We are not one of those companies that holds your website hostage. Um, Also in the Q&A portal, will there be a recording? I unfortunately missed the first half. Yes, there'll be a recording. Eddie and Jana, I believe, are going to send that out. So absolutely, you will get a recording. Um, Andy says, "Will you post?" Yes, we will. We'll be happy to. We'll be happy to send the slide out to you, and anybody else who wants the recording and the slides, we'll be happy to send those over. Any other questions? We got a few AI summaries that popped up. It's always funny, Dylan, like looking at like the AI summary of content we just presented, right? Because it's always
Yeah.
like, oh yeah, and look, I'm like, yeah, it's pretty good.
It's like in action, it's live stuff. I mean, I was looking at these ones, and it's funny that I'm being credited with since you did most of the presenting, I'm being credited with some of these to-dos here, but I mean, they're not wrong.
Love it. All right. Yes, multiple of you. Yes, we will absolutely send out the recordings. Jana, Eddie, anything to add on your end here? Jana, you're on mute.
So sorry. Not really. I'm taking notes for everyone who wants the recording right now. But Eddie, do you have anything?
Negative. We'll be reaching out to you if you're on this call. Definitely be sending out recordings, so make sure you have it as well. You'll be hearing from both of us momentarily.
Cool. All right, guys. I think that is it. Dylan, as always, appreciate your time. Guys, we have to pry Dylan away from many other responsibilities. He oversees the team that works directly with clients, does a lot of content creation himself. So Dylan, thank you for joining us. We
Yeah.
really appreciate the input, guys. Some great questions. Hope this was helpful. We are doing one more webinar this before the end of this year. We'll send out some information around that. But listen, bottom line, I'll begin back where we started. This is happening and it's happening fast. I think 2026 is going to be the year of AI search. And so I'm really glad you guys are here making time for this. We would love to be your partner in making sure you are found when potential clients search on AI. So if you're interested in that conversation, we'd love to have that with you. But just thanks for being here. Have a great rest of your day. And with that, we will wrap up. So thanks, everybody.
Yeah, thanks everyone.
Bye.